Hello everyone, Brian here again. This time I'll be doing a wear and tear review of my Grylls Ultimate Survival Knife. This blade's gone with me anywhere from the wilderness of the Sierra Nevadas down to the Baja Desert, all the way down to the Pacific Ocean, and it's held up incredibly well. However, if you remember in my first review, I was talking more about the sheath than I was about the knife because there were so many reviews about the knife, I figured that was being a little too redundant. Not a lot of people made a review about the sheath, and I figured it'd be a little different. But we'll get to the sheath in a moment here. Let's start with the things that did hold up, and show you how well they fared. So to begin, let's talk about the fire steel. The fire steel has held up incredibly well. It has created multiple fires. It's still with me. I haven't lost it. And as you can see, the O-ring is still intact. Some people were saying the O-ring comes apart. Mine did not. You'll also notice that the two plastic notches here are well worn out now. And believe it or not, Gerber has actually heard about my situation or my fear that I would actually lose this fire steel in the event that these completely fail, so they sent me a second one. Like I said, the fire steel is held up, no problems, everything's come out just fine the way it's expected. Let me try to refocus on here. I have the hardest time trying to focus the camera on this. I'm not sure if it's because of the light reflection or what. But the fire steel, like I said, it's held up. It's created multiple fires. It has not rotted. It has not come apart. So that's a big plus for me. And believe it or not, despite the fact that everything's all worn out, it still locks in place just fine. Okay, and now we're going to go to the sheath here. So if you all remember, I made some modifications. I added a leg strap and I added a belt strap to it. One of the things that was one of my primary concerns, it was the rubber housing here of the blade of the sheath. It held up fine here, but where it did not hold up at all well fine was right here. As you can see, it's coming apart. So when you pull it, the blade has actually been pulling it apart. That is a terrible, awful design. It's only a matter of time before this whole thing just comes apart, and it's only held together by rubber. So I've contacted Gerber about that as well, and I haven't heard from them yet, but hopefully I will soon. That's just a terrible design. Grit and dirt and everything can get into that hole now at that time. On this side here, I've just noticed that it's starting to come apart a little bit right there at the edge. I'm not sure if this is because of normal wear and tear or because there are times where I've, poked, where I would put the blade in. I may have poked it a couple times. You can see I have definitely poked it here on the inside of the plastic. That's not dirt. That's just poke holes or poke dents from the tip of the blade. Let me pull the blade out there. There we go. So that's a big concern of mine, a big no-no, something I don't like that they made, and I don't know why they didn't test the sheath out as much as they tested out the second production of the blade. Another thing I didn't like, you guys heard it before, you're going to hear it again, is the Velcro. I have cleaned the Velcro out many times to ensure that it's all clear and clean, but it still doesn't hold up well. It's, you have to squeeze it and rub it around. So once that's set and done, it actually holds up, but even so, not so much. I think part of the problem is that the other side of the Velcro here is become quite frayed, and it's just poor quality, absolute poor quality. Speaking of poor quality, let me get this all opened up here. This Velcro here, this part of the Velcro here, it's held up incredibly well. Everything's fine. I'm assuming the reason why it's held up so well is that I don't use this as much as I use this, obviously. One thing I don't like is the knife sharpener. And if you remember, I have another video about the Grylls knife sharpener, and that has held up incredibly well. I gotta say, I have nothing bad to say about that at all. This used to be really, 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 really coarse, and now it's really, really, really smooth. I've contacted Gerber about this as well, and like I said, I haven't heard back from them yet. Everything on here used to be really coarse. Now it's just really smooth. You could hear that. I wasn't able to do that before. This is only after sharpening the blade, I think 9 times. But it still sharpens. It just takes a lot longer now to do so. So my advice to anybody who's got this, if you have this, if you haven't used it, learn how to use it on learn how to sharpen your knives, first of all, on a different kind of whetstone, like a real whetstone, not a piece of metal that's been coated. And learn how to properly sharpen your knife, because once you start using this, you're going to maybe 7 to 9 times, maybe 10 at best, to sharpen your blade with it without it going smooth on you. Other people might have different kinds of luck than I did, but I guess in this case I didn't have very good luck with it. I will say nothing has rusted though. Like I said, it's been in the ocean. I was out there fishing out in Coos Bay, and I brought a fish in there. Well, let me back up a little bit. I fell in the ocean while fishing in Coos Bay. The water was really cold. I didn't really have any time to wipe down the blade or any of the equipment or any part of the knife and sheath, and every bit of it is held up. You can see there's absolutely no rust on there. I did eventually clean it just to make sure, but yeah. Anyways, this is worn out. This has worn out, and this is completely coming apart. So I don't know how much longer I have with this, but that's okay. I'm getting my Bear Grylls Ultimate Pro Knife soon, and this will be my backup survival blade. I suppose I could singe it or put some sort of industrial staple that can go through there. I'm not sure. But I guess I'll hear from Gerber first, see what they're planning to do about that. Let's talk about the blade for a little bit here. I know there's a lot of reviews on the blade, but there aren't any newer reviews, should I say, after the blade's been used. I was actually skinning one of my catches that I caught, and my blade, I went through the head of the game that I caught, and I didn't mean to, and the tip of my blade actually went into a rock that I didn't see, and it did dull out the tip of it, but I was able to put a new tip on there. The metal is pretty soft, so it's pretty easy to grind it down. However, with that being said, it's also really easy to sharpen. The blade is still incredibly sharp. The serrations are even sharper still. I did sharpen them a couple of times, and this edge has held an edge very well. The only thing I gotta say is that when you're cutting into meat constantly with it, and you're on your trips or you're teaching survival classes, you're finding that the more that you use it, whether you're batoning wood or you're cutting through an animal, the blade tends to wear out quicker than, say, if you're cutting through fish or you're cutting through rope. So, and that just may be with a lot of these cheaper steels that come out of China. The back of the blade here, where you make your fires, or where you create your fires, has held up incredibly well. It hasn't worn out on me. The edge is still there. One of my concerns was when you use the fire steel on it, it was going to wear out the edge of the blade, as I have done so in the past of previous knives. But it's held up pretty well. No problems there. The handle, it held up just great. The only problem is when I made one of my fires, I put the handle down close to the fire. That was a dumb move on my part, and I didn't realize, I completely forgot that old man's beard goes up quick and it goes out far, and I ended up singeing the back of the handle here, which is alright. You know, it didn't damage it too much. It only really damaged the rubber and discolored the orange. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that this rubber is very, while it's very comfortable, it's very low quality and it melts very quickly. The back of the pommel, once again, has held up incredibly well. As you can see, it's still in one piece. It's still attached to the knife. No problems there. I have smashed bone, And I even smashed some, I think, what was either granite, I think it was granite, to make our fire pit. And everything's held up incredibly well on that part. And I gotta tell you, the blade, there's a lot of naysayers about this knife. And I'm actually, I would say that I'm fairly experienced in the wilderness and in some survival situations. But, for me, this blade has held up incredibly well. And speaking of stuff that held up very well was the finish of the blade itself. It's got some wear and tear on it from batoning, you can see there. But the finish is still on there for the most part. You'll always have your wear and tear on blades like this. But the truth of the matter is, you got to understand is that these blades are meant to be used. They're not meant to be hanging up on your wall or running around your backyard thinking that you're Bear Grylls. One thing I still don't recommend about this blade that I didn't like was the lashing holes here. To me, they seem just so darn close. If you ever take this handle off, which I believe the only way you can do it is with a Dremel saw, you'll see that this metal comes right up to the edge here and right down to here. So I didn't like that design. But other than that, everything is held up, no problems. And that's pretty much about it. So this is Brian signing off for now, and I'll talk to y'all later. Okay, bye-bye.